Friends, actually, today I would like to discuss about the vendor evaluation process in SAP MM. So, as per vendor evaluation function, so it will optimize the procurement of materials and services, as everybody knows. In a traditional, say for example, any procurement organization, or say for example any purchase division. So actually, what will they will do? Actually, they will mark. Say for some X vendor, they will compare the. They will analyze the quality, quantity delivered, on time delivery, and then the service they render, and then actually say for example the performance of the vendor and the communication or the rapport they are giving. So delivery dates, price, the quantities, everything actually everything can be a price. So everything can be taken into consideration for comparing between the vendors. So they will, once they study the vendor X, and they will do the same analysis on vendor Y and vendor Z, and he will compare all these terms, that is price, quantity, quality, on time delivery, and goods issue, and on time, and everything can be monitored in a correct sequence. And actually they will get a correct vendor from the analyzed results. And actually in a traditional thing, actually they will in a whiteboard or something, they will compare all these things and give say for example the weightage, and then actually they will give the rating. So everything can be based on the scores. So everything they will do. So so in this process, actually the vendor evaluation uses the basic materials management functionality with the goods received from IM module and some data from logistic information services module. So the delivery days, price, and quantities taken from PO, quality results from quality management. So those things can be taken and compared uh, for selecting the best vendor among the different kind of vendors. So now we can able to determine and compare the performance of, yeah, of the vendors you are approaching. Actually, the your purchase organization is approaching different vendors, and they can select best vendors based on certain criteria and evaluations. And the vendors selected, they are rated some overall scores. So actually, we need to see elements of vendor evaluation. So what are all the elements of vendor evaluation? That is overall score, that is general vendor evaluation, and the second criteria, main criteria. And then we inside the main criteria, that is main criteria in the sense, actually we have this say for example delivery, quality, quantity, and then actually on time delivery, price, and all, right? Actually below that we have sub criteria, and then scoring the range, and then weighting of scores. So these are the five important vendor evaluation steps. That is overall general vendor evaluation, main criteria, defining the main criteria, and defining the sub criteria between below the main criteria, and scoring the range. And then as a fifth step, we need to weight the weighting of scores. So determining the scores. How to determine the scores? We have three steps: determining the overall score, and then second is determining the scores for the main criteria, and determining the scores for the sub criteria. So now we have overall score. So the overall score represents the general evaluation of the vendor, and it is a combination of all the scores that the vendor has achieved for each main criteria. And here main criteria represents price, quality, delivery, general service, supports and services, invoice, and it helps you to assess the performance of the vendors. And below this main criteria, we have the sub criteria, and in that actually we have the main criteria of price, and below that the sub criteria is price level, price history, and then say let's say quantity is a main criteria, and below that we have sub criteria GR, quantity audit, compliance level, and the reaction or rejection towards that. And for the main criteria delivery, So we have the following sub criteria, that is on time delivery, and then delivery performance, quantity, reliability, compliance with shipping, with the shipping instruction, and the confirmation date, everything. And we have the for the main criteria invoice, we have the following sub criteria, that is quantity variance, price variance, etc. And then actually for as a third thing, actually scoring the range. So scoring a range here, actually to compare the performance of the vendor with another vendor, so it is necessary to establish the range. So that is very important. And so of the actually what I'm saying is the comparing the possible scores, so that we can define the scores from say for example, from the worst to best. So that is very important, that is from 1 to 100. So weighting of scores, here the scores, a vendor is according for the main criteria can be weighted different, or to different to reflect the difference in the significance of the criteria. So actually how that this vendor evaluation is processed means, actually we have two different ratings, that is equal weighting and unequal weighting. So we need to choose it from SPRO, that is IMG path in SAP, and in SPRO screen we have purchasing vendor evaluation, define the weighting keys, and we need to choose based on the our business requirement, that is weighted scores or unequal weighting, or equal weighting or unequal weighting. And below that we have the main criteria definition. So SPRO, purchasing, and then vendor evaluation, and below that we have defined criteria, and then we have price, quality, delivery, and service as a main criteria. And then actually for each criteria we will have a sub criteria. So I told all the things, actually what are all the sub criteria. This criteria for sub criteria is price one, price level two, or price list, quality, quality in the sense that goods receipt, quality audit, and delivery. In the delivery for main criteria delivery, we have on time delivery, and then confirmation shipment instruction as a sub criteria for the delivery. And for the main criteria service, we have invoice and flexibility, everything can be defined as a sub criteria. So actually these will help you to rate your vendor on based on main criteria and sub criteria. And then we have to define the scope of list. So scope of list can be defined in the below part, that is pro purchasing, and then vendor evaluation, defining the scope list. So now we have the scope list in place, and then we need to assign all this analysis to our purchase organization. Thereby we need to maintain one purchase organization for our company. So that is done by SPRO, purchasing, vendor evaluation, maintain purchase organization data. This will help you to determine which purchase organization data is going to treat with, is having business with vendor, how they are comparing the vendor evaluation, which purchase organization is subject to vendor evaluation, doing vendor evaluation. So everything can be determined here. And now actually we are defined with the we are done with the configuration. Now with the transaction level, we need to use ME61. So in ME61 we need to use the different vendors subjected to vendor evaluation comparison. So so in this initial screen of the ME61 screen, we need to enter the purchase organization, and then vendor, select or click on main criteria. So the first, in that first vendor, we have to define what are all the criteria, and same way second vendor, third vendor. Here my aim is to compare three vendors, so we need to maintain all the main criteria and related criteria in all the three vendors. And now actually to generate a report using T code ME6H is more required. And evaluation sheet is generated using ME6F, so for all the vendors. And this will give the evaluation of all the vendors. And then ranking list of all vendors using ME65, and then actually this will give the ranking of each vendor against their criteria which are considered for evaluation. So this is how the vendor evaluation is done, and the best vendor is chosen in SAP MM. So I hope this when vendor evaluation process will help you how you are defining the overall weightage, and how the main criteria is utilized, and below the main criteria how the sub criteria are determined, and then the overall rating, and then ranking scoring everything. So I hope actually this will help you to suit a best vendor. So SAP is well designed to fit the required functionality, and it is not only for vendor evaluation, it is for total vendor management from end to end scenario, that is starting from selecting a vendor to the vendor payment, and then further processing, everything can be done through SAP. Thanks to SAP. Thanks for listening my video.